Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for episode 130 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. I am your host, Tim Jennette, the Mental Meeple, and in this episode, I talk about the board games Tidal Blades, Ohanami, and Village Green, and much more. Alexa, ask a random question.
Here's a question for you. Name a product or service you love so much that you'd happily be that company's spokesperson.
Well, I can get behind this one. There's tons of board games companies, but let's just take it out of the board gaming realm and maybe even the gaming realm. Is there anything that I own that I would, you know what? I'll tell you what, this is actually kind of funny. And my wife, if she ever listens to this episode, she's going to laugh. In the hobby miniature world, you use super glue to glue things together. And it just so happens that one of the first product reviews I ever written was for Gale Force 9's super glue or model glue that they produce. And it is fantastic. This stuff dries like liquid glass. I love everything about it. It's so great. It's like the only product review other than board gaming stuff that I've ever left. Man, I buy this stuff so much. I've been using it for years and years, and I just never liked other super glues. You know, even stuff that you can buy at the store, other hobby glues that I've purchased. Now, I mean, I have used some since then that I do enjoy. I do have, but the Gale Force 9 hobby miniature glue, super glue or whatever, is phenomenal. I love it. 5 stars. I will join Gale Force 9. Plus, I like their games anyway. And I guess I wasn't really going to talk about board gaming companies, but this is an accessory. Even if I was a spokesperson running around wearing a Gale Force 9 glue outfit, or maybe that's taking it too far. But anyway, I will say that GF9 makes some fantastic hobby supplies. I have most of it, specifically because I bought the glue first. I really liked it. Started buying some of their other stuff, like their clippers and the X-Acto blades, which that stuff, I mean, it's not like it's amazingly better than other stuff. It's all kind of the same stuff anyway, right? The super glue is a little bit different because it could be a formula thing. Fantastic product. If you need glue, check out Gale Force 9. If you need hobby miniature supplies also as well. So this was not a paid sponsorship, obviously, since it was a random question by Alexa. Before we move on to some games, I just want to say, number one, sorry that this episode is late. I did not get a chance to record it. I have to do this one by myself. George was out of town at the time, and I wanted to keep up with the once per week. So he will be on the next episode. It was just kind of a scheduling thing where we had to do this. Plus, I did get to play some games that he did not get to play, and those are the ones I'm going to talk about in this episode. First, I'm going to tell you what I've been up to since the last episode, though. I've been playing a ton of Hades for the Nintendo Switch. Fantastic game. It actually gets better and better the more you play. Even though it's a game where you play, you die, you start back over with nothing, essentially. There are some things you can increase each, death because you get like a currency, basically. It is phenomenal. The story's really cool. At first, I was kind of wondering if there was a story. But yes, there is a story. Obviously, this is kind of their MO with Bastion and Transistor. They packed a lot of story in here, a lot of fun humor. It's such a good game. You have to try this one if you have not. I've also been playing Tiny Island Survival on my iPhone. I'm assuming this is probably on Android as well. It's like a survival game, but you only play it on one screen, and you're just running around on this island, chopping down stuff, picking up rocks, turning them into like random villagers that pop up. It's such a fun little game. I've only probably put 45 minutes into it, but it's free to play. I think there is something in there where you can watch ads to get gold, although it's not necessary at all. You can get gold. I don't know why you would even want to speed it up, but it's worth trying out if you just want a single screen filler to play. It's called Tiny Island Survival. And lastly, I've been playing a lot of the Cartographers phone app, the phone implementation. The app is okay. I mean, I would say a 3 out of 5 is pretty good. It's nothing flashy. There's a little bit of, polish that could have been done to make it a little better. However, I do like it for what it is. Man, I just really like Cartographers a lot. I love the paper, the actual board game version, the roll and write. And this is a very good, I wouldn't say it's great, but it's a good implementation as an app. Now, I've only been playing a bunch of solo games, not online or anything like that. And even so, it's tons of fun. It's a kind of a cool sit there and think a little bit, kill game where you're just, waiting between, depending on what your occupation is, but waiting between, for me, waiting for something to load or do something. I can just kind of kick out a game real fast. It doesn't take very long. So really cool. I like all the role player tales stuff. And this Cartographers app was a good purchase. It's probably on the little bit of a pricey side for what it is when you compare it, relatively speaking, to other phone apps, because it is $4 at full pricing. Obviously, it's been on sale, possibly, I think. I'm pretty sure it's been on sale, but it wasn't when I purchased it last week. But the app is a little pricey. I would say probably $1.99. Maybe even $2.99. I know that's just $1 off, but that's literally 25% of the cost off, right? I think that it's maybe a little bit much for the amount of polish and stuff it has, but it's a great game, great company, well worth the $4 to me. I'm not really that bothered by it, but there's so many other games that are $1 or $2, which is just, it's funny. I'm even having this conversation because I am always in the mindset that apps are too cheap. But apps that are $1, I kind of look at it like, eh. But interestingly enough, they've conditioned us to make it feel like $1 is a barrier. You almost want, that's not a free app. What? And it's just baffling to me that even I am succumbing to the mindset that $1 is too much. So $4 for a game on a phone is like, what is this? It's not free. So for me, though, I actually think games should be more expensive on the phone. I don't know why we have this assumption that if it's on a mobile device that it has to be priced ridiculously lower. I mean, even take like Among Us, for example. It's free on the phone. It's $5 on Steam. No one bats an eye at buying it on a computer, but when they download it on the phone, if it said $1, people would freak out. Just a really crazy mindset for video games and apps and stuff, but it is what it is. And that's pretty much all I've been up to other than some family stuff. We went to a couple of kid events at the Science Center, and they had all these trucks and stuff out front, like, fire engines and stuff. That was kind of cool. Got some swag. I always like swag, Can't go to conventions right now, or I mean, we will be. But, I miss all the fun little pins and getting buttons and stuff like that. And this was kind of neat, walking around getting more swag. Ironically, talking about Cartographers, though, and the reason it prompted me to buy the app is because when I was at this event, the Rumpke, which is a garbage truck company, had these little tube cylinder things that are like half see-through and half wood. And basically it had 12 color pencils in it with a sharpener built onto the top. And I thought, man, I could throw that in with Cartographers, and it's basically perfect because Cartographers, you have those 5 different terrain types, and it would be cool to be able to use the pencils to color with and have a sharpener with it the whole time. So I got a bunch of those. I actually got like 4, mostly because of the kids and everything, but I took one of them and put it in the game where basically I replaced the pencils that it comes with. So that was kind of neat. And then I was thinking about it the day after and decided to download the app while I was at it, and I've been playing it nonstop. So fun stuff. If you have any other interesting apps, board game apps that you really, really enjoy, let me know. If you send an email to MeepleCore@gmail.com, or just, post something on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook group, whatever. I do have quite a bit of them right now. Like I have Waterdeep and Patchwork, Le Havre, San Juan, Roll For It, Suburbia, Through the Ages, Ascension, Terraforming Mars, One Deck Dungeon, Onirim, Onitama, Agricola, Nirashima Hex, On Tour, Tokaido, Cartographers, Galaxy Trucker, Bottom of the Night, Tigris and Euphrates, Lost Cities, Isle of Skye, and Tides of Time. Those are the ones I own. If there's any that you didn't immediately think or hear, shoot them my way. And And my watch just said, had trouble hearing me. I wasn't talking to you, Siri. Anyway, let me know, because I'm always interested in looking at other apps, and sometimes those expensive apps that might be $7 or $8. And I know I can go watch a review, but I don't just immediately want to download them because, it costs a lot of money to download those and you only have so much time. So the more games you buy, the less you can divide your time amongst. Anyway, I don't have any news. I'm just going to get into the games, kind of make this a quicker episode than normal, since we don't have two people talking. But I will mention again, as always, if you go to MeepleCore.com, click that Humble Bundle partner link, you will be redirected to Humble Bundle, where you can buy some cool software downloads, games, books, comic books, all kinds of cool stuff in a bundled form for a small fee, and get lots of cool stuff, help charity and help our podcast. I really like Humble Bundle. I've been using it for years, and it's like the best way for me to promote the or not really promote the podcast, but to, get the word out about it, but also get a little bit just to pay the small amount of fee that we have each month for the podcast. But it doesn't, require you guys just to feed money directly to us. You're getting what you would have normally got with buying something from Humble Bundle. They just pay us out of that pocket a small percentage, which is really cool. So check it out. Go to MeepleCore.com, click that Humble Bundle partner link. And actually, if you use it, definitely post something about it on social media and tag us. Even if you don't want to make it public, just send us an email. Obviously I go in and I can see that people are doing it, but it's really cool to want to thank you individually. So do that, send us an email, post it, tag it, whatever you want to do. Let us know so I can properly thank you. Anyway, I got 3 games that I'm going to talk about. The first is Ohanami, then Village Green, and Tidal Blades. So first up on this episode is a small card game called Ohanami. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. This was released in 2019. The tagline is "Build the most zen Japanese garden by collecting cards of just the right value." Its designer is Stefan Bendorf. The artist is Christian Operer. And the publisher is Pandasaurus Games. Give you a quick overview of the game before I tell you what I think about it. Basically, this is a small deck of cards. I think there's 120 in it. There are 4 different color cards, but not a copy of each number. So I'm just randomly saying number 63 is a green card. There's not a green, a silver, a blue, and a pink of 63. Each card is only one copy, and it's just a random color, right? So, and that matters for scoring. Basically, it's a drafting game. Every player is going to get 10 cards. You're going to pick 2 of those cards and then pass the remaining to the player to your left. And then right in the second round, and then, on the third round of the game, you'll pass it left, but whatever. So you'll pick 2 cards, you'll pass them, pass the remaining. The 2 that you draft are going to be placed in front of you and played. You don't have to play them, but if you can, you obviously want to. You can play 0, 1, or 2 cards, basically. If you don't play them, obviously you're going to suffer in score, so you definitely want to try to play as many cards as possible. And when you play them, there's only 2 restrictions. One, you can have 3 columns of cards. Each column, when you put a card in it, must be on the top of it or the bottom. So you splay them out in like a column where you can just see the numbers. And you will put a card above or below. And if it's above, it has to be the highest card there. And if it's below, it has to be the lowest card there. So if you have 2 cards in a column already that's like 42 and 64, then you have to play above 64 or below 42. If you cannot play a card, obviously you have to discard it, or if you have room, you can start a new column. And that's pretty much it. You'll draft 2 more cards, you'll pass, draft 2 more cards. Once all 10 cards have been drafted, you'll go to a scoring phase. Then you'll get 10 new cards and do it all over again, score, and then the third and final round where you get 10 cards and then score. The way the scoring works is all the blue cards will score, I think it's 3 points on all the rounds. So the earlier you get a blue card, it's going to end up being worth 9 points at the end of the game because 3 per round. The green cards will score, I believe, 4 points on the second and third round, but nothing in the first. The gray cards will score you 7 in the third round. And the pink cards have a progressive scoring. There's actually a chart. So if you have 8 of them, it's this many points. If you have 11, it's this many. And that's basically the game, which puts me, ironically, a segue of it basically uses the exact system as the game. It's just a competitive version, whereas the game by Pandasaurus is a cooperative version where you're trying to get rid of all the cards. You can't talk or whatever, and there's some other rules. But the first thing I thought was I could just play the game with this deck of cards, and you really can. And as a matter of fact, because the game only uses 98 cards, and as a matter of fact, you can play The Mind with this deck as well. So interestingly enough, you can buy this one copy, this game, and play all 3 games. Now, it's not the other way around because this has the most cards in it, but they are labeled 1 to 120. So you can use, the first 98 or first 100 for the other 2 games. Well played, selling me the game, the same game 3 times in a row. Not really, I'm joking, but being facetious. It's fantastic. I actually like all 3 of these. The Mind kind of wore off on me. I thought it was kind of a novel concept, and you played it, and it's neat to teach new people, but it's not something that we play with the same people over and over again. The game was kind of like that too. I'm not a massive co-op person. If I am going to co-op, it's going to be something like a dungeon crawl or whatever. But this game is fantastic. I like this one a whole lot. I was on an episode of the next, 5 great games with Tom Vassell, and this was the only game of the 5 I hadn't played. And I really tried to get this played before I was on there. I didn't get to it, but I ended up playing it a lot afterwards. So I really like this. It's fantastic. Number one, it has great artwork. I love the Japanese, like, countryside or feudal Japan artwork where you have all the cherry blossoms and like the beauty to it and everything. That's, feudal Japan is one of my favorite times in history. And I just really, really like this game. I mean, it's just fun. It's a fun game. It's a nice filler. It is boils down to just being a drafting game basically, but it's a fun one at that. I highly recommend trying it out. I don't know if I would run out and buy it. It's good. If you're going to get any of these 3, I would definitely get this one, especially since you can just play all 3 with it. But obviously support your publishers. If you like the other games, The Mind or the game, definitely buy that separately just to help Pandasaurus and the designers of those games as well. So Ohanami gets a really high recommendation from me, pretty much from everything. The only thing I will say about the game, I think that is kind of meh, which is completely, we didn't even play it this way, but in the rule book, basically once you draft the cards, you draft your 2 cards and you pass the rest to your player to your left, right? Or right, whatever round it is. But the last player to pass them is the first player to play their 2 cards into their columns that round. And then you go clockwise from there. We're just like, dude, whatever, play your cards, right? And just don't look at what else everybody else is doing. Now, obviously you want to see what they're doing, but not when you're placing your 2 cards and just be like, okay, now everybody kind of look up and look, it's just more of an etiquette thing. I didn't think it was just like a silly rule that we didn't care about. And you could play with it, whatever. It's just, I guess it's meant to punish the person who's taken the longest to draft cards, but whatever. Anyway, you do want to kind of look at what other people are doing because, say, for instance, you have like a number 74 in your hand and you look around and most of the 70s have been drafted, right? Then, maybe it's, I can play this one, or maybe it's like a 79. You're getting ready to put it over a 69, right? So you're skipping 10 cards, but you look around and 8 of those 10 cards have already been played. So you do want to kind of keep track of what other players are doing. I just don't think it's necessary to like punish somebody because they're taking a little bit longer to draft their 2 cards. But, it's just a silly rule, whatever. We just kind of skipped it naturally, actually. I kind of mentioned it and then I was like, we're not really going to worry about that. And I don't know if everybody just kind of remembered that, but when we've played it, no one really does it. I don't ever reiterate it anyway. So anyway, I won't ramble on too much more about a little filler game, but Ohanami is a really good game. Check it out. Ohanami. Next up on this episode, we are talking about Village Green, which was published in 2020. And the tagline is a game of pretty gardens and pretty grudges. It's for 1 to 5 players. Its designer is Pierre Sylvester. Artist is Johanna Rosa. And it was published by Osprey Games. Now, I won't go over all the rules, but it is a pretty simple game. Basically, the idea is you're going to be building a 4x4 village or whatever, town or garden. Well, yeah, I guess it is a garden since the game's Village Green, but you're building this like 4x4 grid of cards. Now, the top row the top left corner is actually like your starting card. It gives you a special power when you flip it over, or it's worth a point at the end of the game. But otherwise, the other 3 cards in the first row are going to be award cards, which are basically scoring cards. And the first column, those other 3 cards are going to be scoring cards as well, award cards. The other 3x3 grid that's off, shifted is going to be your green cards, or, like the plants and stuff that you're placing in your garden. And that's actually what the other cards are going to score off of, because once your grid is full or the game ends because somebody else, some other requirement happened and the game ends, then each award card is going to score a row or column depending on where that award card is. So that's kind of the general idea. There are 2 decks of cards. There's green cards and award cards. And on your turn, you choose one action. You can either draw and play a green card or draw and play an award card. Both of those decks actually have 3 cards face up as well, or you can top deck it. When you play a green card, you can either play it into your grid of 3x3, or you can play it to the bottom of the green deck. If you choose the award action, you must draw an award card, top deck, or one of the 3 face up, and then place it in one of the award slots or cover up a previous award. Now, the way the game's going to end is if either of those decks run out or somebody has filled up their entire grid. I can't remember if it's just the green cards that filled up or if it's the entire with the awards. Typically, what ends up happening for us is the award deck runs out. Every game I've played, it's always been the award deck that runs out. I don't know if it's just the way we play or something, but that's usually how it runs out for us. Here's what I like about the game. Number one, this ironically is one of the only games recently that I've played solo. So we'll mention that in a second. But this game is a lot more thinky than you would think it to be. I had a lot of AP just thinking about what do I, get rid of. And it has this like kind of a cool gamble aspect because I can play this card, but I don't like the 3 that are face up. So let's see what I top deck, and bam. Because when you're placing a green card, there's a requirement. Any green card that it's next to, or even future green cards that you put out, has to match the flower or color of the cards adjacent to it. So if you put out like a red rose, then the cards next to it have to either match a rose or be red. So you can lock yourself out because there's 3 different colors and 3 different types of flowers. You can lock yourself out by putting, too many of different types, because now you can't meet all the requirements of like the 3 cards around it, right? Mentioning that though, there is one color, which is yellow, incredibly hard to see. Like, I know it's yellow, but you can't tell which flower it is. We had to constantly pick up the card and like look real close, because the lily and the iris are really similar flowers. Especially when it's colored in yellow, because there's no outline and it's on a white background at that point. Really, really hard to see. That's actually the only disappointing part about the game, honestly. But it's overlookable because of how great the game is. This is a really fun game. Like, for a filler, it is like a 30-minute game. So, I guess it's not a filler, but it's a really fast game. As long as people have played it once or maybe twice. Because you're not, you get the idea of what kind of awards there are out there. And there's all kinds of awards. I didn't even mention that there are different types of cards. Some of the scoring for the awards, reference these types of cards. Now, obviously the flowers and stuff will be part of the awards. Like maybe, there's one card, it's like 3 points for every red rose type of thing. But there's also trees that show up on your cards. There's 3 different types of trees. So the award cards will be based on like have 2 or more types of trees, or for every 2 of this specific tree, you'll get this many points. There are lake cards. Those are worth 2 points, but some of the cards require you to have it, or some of the award cards require you to have it for scoring. There are field cards that you can put out, and those, they don't necessarily do much about themselves. You can actually place green cards on top of them. But you can also, when you place the field card down, it at least fills up that spot so it's not blank. And some of the other cards will actually give you negative points for having blank spaces in that row or column. There are structure cards. When you place those, they look like a little, kind of like a gazebo, I guess. When you place those, it'll actually allow you to take basically an award card action out of turn. You'll draw and play an awards card. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Anyway, some of the awards, I mean, there's other ones, 3 types of flowers and you'll get 6 points, but that's really hard to do because if you're putting all 3 different types of flowers in a row, then it's really hard to get the cards next to those cards to work, because the grid starts getting different flowers and different colors and such. So there's a lot to think about when you're placing cards, but man, it is so rewarding when you get like a really good setup, which it can be annoying, because if people are just top decking or they have the right cards, then the display doesn't change much for you to draw from. You do have your special power. It's once per game and you lose a point, which, I mean, the points aren't, you're probably scoring, I don't know, up to 30 points maybe. So, 1 point doesn't seem like a lot, but it can be. And, when you flip your thing down, you got these 2 different actions you can take. One of them is basically, wipe the display and refill it type of deal. Another one is, you can flip it face down and play a green card on top of a green card you already played in case you made a mistake or whatever. Or maybe you got a better rewards card, but that one card in the column doesn't work. So you want to replace it. So it's a really interesting, concept. I like the idea that you have all these scoring cards that kind of conflict with each other because one of them will be like, you want trees. And the other one that's in the row is like, you don't want any trees. Those obviously don't work together because each card's going to be aligned with 2 different award cards, the column and the row. So really, really deep, or it's deeper than normal for this small of a game, which makes it really appealing to me. I like it a lot. Great range. It's still not a super complex game. Like the rules are very basic. The idea of what you're doing and trying to make it work is where the complexity lies. And I think that's what makes a really good game, where it's not just a bunch of, rules and things stacked on top of each other and restrictions and all that stuff. I mean, this game has some restrictions, but figuring out that puzzle to design the best little garden is really, really cool. I like this one a lot. This one's, I randomly found it. I actually didn't know anything about this game, but I randomly found it at half price out of all places for like $8. And I'm absolutely glad I bought it. I mean, really, when I flipped it over and saw Osprey Games, I was totally sold anyway. And, really good game. I highly recommend this one. That is Village Green. And so last up on this episode, I am talking about Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef. This was published in 2020. The tagline is join a tournament to become a Tidal Blade, guardian of the island realm. This is for 1 to 4 players. Designer is Tim Eisner and Ben Eisner. Artist is Lena Cassette, David Forrest, and it's published by Druid City Games / Skybound Games. Now, there's a lot of rules to this game, enough to where I'm not going to mention them all simply for sake of, the podcast, so you don't get bored. But I will kind of brief you over like the idea of the game and what you're doing. It is essentially a worker placement game. The difference is the worker placement actions are different boards. Each board, there's a main worker placement action when you go there, but you also are going to choose a bonus spot to go to and you get a bonus. So if you want to go to the, there's a board that allows you to get these little, I can't remember what they're called, skills or something, like little cards you play, one-time effects type of deal. And maybe you'll take the bonus spot to get another die or to get some fruit and a white dice, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So you're never denied the ability to get what the main action of the worker spot is, but your bonus might be different and maybe not what you were going after first off. Now, when you move around and do these actions, your worker spots, you are going to leave discs behind with your character's face on it that will block those spaces for the round. So just like in worker placement games, then the number of spaces dwindle because people have started taking them. What's interesting though is even if all the bonus spaces on a board, and by the way, the boards represent islands, basically it's all these little islands that represent this area. And if all the spaces on an island are taken, you can still go to that board and do the main action. You just at that point don't get a bonus. So you're never actually locked out of anything, especially because the whole game is about completing these challenge cards. These challenge cards require you to roll dice and get certain faces to complete the card. And they'll also have a symbol on it that represents one of the islands. So you need to be able to go to these islands to try for these challenge cards. And if you could lock somebody out of that, it might be a little bit more of a cutthroat game, I guess, which could have been cool, but that's not what it's about. So there are essentially in the base game 5 different boards, I believe. One of them is kind of a market board where you go and you can buy some of these face-up cards using a currency called fruit. The fruit's used for a couple of different reasons, but one of them is to go to the market board and buy that. There's another one I talked about where you get those single-use cards. Those are, they say what to do on the card. You can play it at any point or whatever. There's another one where it's kind of an arena where you're racing around these little jet skis or whatever. When you go there, you get to actually move the token around the spots on the outside. So that main action is kind of differ depending on when you go there and how far you move it. There's a board that you go to get the challenge cards there's some of them face up, and there's a deck. You can kind of do either or. You want to get, like a diversified amount of challenges because you want some easy ones, but you want some hard ones as well because they're more rewarding as far as points and everything. And there's a monster board, and we'll talk about the monsters here in a minute, but basically you can go there and hit the monsters. So like I said, this game does have dice. There are white dice, which are your basic dice. There's 4 different symbols in the game, plus a question mark, which is a wild. Kind of a interesting choice in a wild symbol. I would have made it something cool like a sword or whatever, but it is what it is. It works out. I didn't even really pay attention to that until afterwards, so that's just a random thought. But you can go to different spaces in the game and upgrade your dice. And when you upgrade your dice, you choose a path for them. So the dice can go from being white to like blue and like a darker blue, or like a blue with a black, like a black die with like a blue square. And then, so there's these different ranks to the dice. And if you go the blue route, you're going to mostly be rolling, like these shields and, these little triangle things. I can't remember. It's like spirit. No, it's not spirit. Well, anyway, whatever they're called, it's like blue and green. And if you go the other route, you're going to get red dice that are the other 2 colors, which is orange and yellow, or red and yellow. The reason that's important is because it's going to give you more chances of rolling those symbols. Synergy, resilience, spirit, and focus. Well, anyway, it's going to give you more chances to rolling those symbols because that's what you need to complete the challenge. When you actually choose to do a challenge, what will happen is you will first decide on what your dice pool is. Your player board has these 4 dials, and as the dials go up, they will increase not only in victory points and stuff, but they'll increase thresholds from like 1 to 2 or 3. So you might have to move the dial 2 or 3 spaces to get from 1 to 2. But once you do, it represents something. So one of them will allow you to get roll more dice or bring more dice into a challenge. One will allow you to, get more of your character cards, which we'll talk about here in a minute. The resilience will allow you to refresh more dice when that happens, which happens at the end of the round. And there's other spots on the board that you can do it as well. And so yeah, what you're trying to do is roll these symbols. When you start a challenge, you will look at your focus and choose how many dice you get. Maybe you get 2. Okay, great. Well, you can actually spend fruit in addition to what your dice pool is to add more dice. And you might want to do that because maybe the card you need or that you want to complete has 5 symbols, but if you're only rolling 2 dice, that's impossible, right? Some of the upper tiers of the dice, if you go one way, blue or red all the way, they have multiple symbols on one side. So it could happen, but typically the ones with more symbols require you to have a more diverse number of symbols. Actually, some of them do have you just 5 of the same symbol. So I guess that would be kind of cool. Alongside rolling the dice, you're going to roll a danger die, and that changes depending on how far through the game you are. So I think you play the game over 5-ish rounds. I say ish because there is like a longer game where it has like a half round to where you can do stuff to kind of build up a little bit before you officially start the round. But each round, you only have a couple of worker placement actions. And as you go through the rounds, like 1 and 2, I think you get 2 actions, and then eventually you get another disc, and then the final round you get your 4th disc. So you're only taking I think 13 actions or something like that throughout the whole game. So you want to make use of them very, very well. When you are rolling the dice, the danger die, depending, I think it's like rounds 1, 3, and the last round or something, you're going to add a danger die, and that will have some blank sides and some sides with an X. In the harder dice will actually have 2 X's on some of the sides. Point is, once you roll all those dice, you have to destroy a die for each X that you roll, unless you spend the other currency in the game called shells. When you spend those shells, they'll actually go to this little shield card that you have, and you can use them to do other things, right? The shield card actually says you can spend a shell to this card to ignore an X. But if you have 4 of them on there, you can actually spend all 4 of those shells to set a die to what symbol you want. So there's a cool way to mitigate the dice. Even if you try to gamble it and roll 3 or 4 times, eventually you're going to spend enough shells to put on this shield that you can convert one of your dice into the symbol that you were trying to roll the last 3 turns, or last 3 rolls. Because it's a pressure luck style. You roll, do you want to continue? Yeah, you spin the shell anyway, you assign the dice that you can, then you decide if you want to quit or go ahead. You roll again, do the same thing, and either you'll run out of shells or you'll complete the card. Really cool. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to mention real quick is the monster boards. There's always, not at first, but then eventually a monster comes out. Then at the end of the round, he will possibly attack. You roll a D8, and it's like 1 through 5, the first monster attacks. 6 through 8, the next monster attacks. And then that monster will move down to the next spot and a new one will come out. So eventually there's always 2, but 1 drops off. So they only stay out individually 2 turns. It's just always a cycle of monsters. Those are there because you need to do damage to them. They have all these little symbols on there that you will put these little character tokens on. And if you damage it, you will get, obviously any of the symbols that you get from covering them up on the monsters or completing these challenge cards I was talking about will allow you to increase the same dial on your player board 1 space. So that's how you move those dials up and become better. Anyway, you want to do damage to the monster because if the monster drops off the board, it has like a penalty effect if you hadn't done a damage to it at all. So, and which is usually like destroy a dice or something. So you definitely want to hit it at least once. But if you're going to go on it, you might as well go ham and then roll a bunch of dice and cover up a lot of the symbols, because some of them actually will give you these little champion points or whatever they're called. There's another board that you get these little, I can't remember the exact wording. I think it is champion, but you'll get champion points that you will move up on this little track. And at the end of the rounds, whoever's furthest on the track gets like a bonus point. And at the end of the game, you get points based on your position on that track. You get points for other reasons too, like the challenge cards you've completed and some other stuff. But that's pretty much it, other than the characters. So each character has their own board, which is identical, but they have a deck of cards that are unique to that character. And there's maybe 12 cards or something, 10 cards. There's a good sized deck of those cards. Typically, you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 of those out per game, because that little dial, as you move it up, which is synergy, as that goes up, you'll unlock the ability to look through your deck, or, you draw so many of them and you pick one and play it. And that's going to stay out for the rest of the game. So kind of give you an idea of how the game is. And I'm just going to really go through my thoughts now. I will say this. 1, I do like the fact that, and I've said it before, if you've listened to the podcast, with deck builders, really with any type of game, but especially deck builders and worker placement games, I need to see something unique. Otherwise, I'm kind of like, that was okay. What's interesting about Tidal Blades is nothing is ever locked out from you. You do get to do the main action that you're going for. You just don't get that little bonus, but it is in your best interest to try to use that bonus as essentially another action, right? Because you only get so little in the game. So it is really cool that you can, you're never thinking, should I go and do this first? But I'll get locked out if I don't, sometimes it does get to the point where you're like, man, I should go do this first because this gives me his fruit and I need a lot of fruit for what I'm about ready to do. And I feel that maybe somebody else at the table is going to take that before me. Sometimes it comes into play though with the bonus spots. I do like that. I love the pressure luck part of the challenge cards. Not only do you roll the dice and you're like, should I keep going? But there's also like an optional space on the challenge cards that you can get as well, but it's not required to complete it. And, maybe you complete all the spaces besides that one, and it makes you go, man, I still have a die left, but if you roll it, you're still rolling the danger die. And so if you roll an X, now you're burning a shell. So it's got a cool little pressure luck aspect. I like that a whole lot. The character cards are really cool. I actually prefer that over something like one character ability that you get throughout the whole game. I feel like that's kind of, those asymmetrical powers are kind of boring most of the time. Sometimes they're neat, but if it's like you get a -1 discount at the market, stuff like that's kind of meh to me. So I like the character deck because now not only, obviously with the caveat if it's balanced against all the other players, but that's kind of a given. The character deck allows you to kind of build a character as you're playing the game and have like a specific type of strategy. And I think that's neat. However, it does suffer from, you might draw some really crappy in-game or cards that you draw at the end of the game. Like, man, I'm not really going to do that many times. So this is kind of worthless. And this other thing I haven't been focusing on at all. So, sometimes you can have a bust where the character cards that you have to choose from aren't that great at the moment, or, especially late in the game. Obviously the fix to that is to get those things out as soon as you can, but obviously you're doing a lot of things at once. So it may not be in your most valuable interest to go after character cards first. I'm just saying that later in the game, you could draw some cards, or the available cards you get to draw and look at aren't that awesome to choose from. They're good cards, but maybe early game cards. I don't necessarily think I would, say you should be able to look through your whole deck and do that, because then there would just be an obvious, clear, easiest path for each character that people mathematically hammer out or something. So I don't want to do that. But for the most part, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. It just can happen. With that being said, I do like the character decks much better than asymmetrical powers. I mean, these are asymmetrical powers, but there's a whole deck of them rather than being a, one little thing or some kind of discount. So that was kind of cool. The only thing about the game I was kind of meh about, and I'm not saying it's designed bad because I actually think it's designed kind of good, is the monster decks, or the monster characters off to the side. The monsters are annoying, and I get why they're there because, it makes you have to be like, do I want to go over there and gamble to do some damage to it? Because if the dice is rolled and that monster attacks and I haven't hit it, then I'm going to suffer some penalty. And then once it drops off, I'll suffer penalty. It's designed pretty cool. It just seems to me like it's almost a hassle. And since you don't get that many actions in the game, it really is a tough choice. And maybe it's just a choice I don't want to make, but I do believe that it is designed and integrated into the game really well. I don't know how you would integrate it even better than that. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, I'd almost rather it not be there, but it is there and it's done well. And so I get it. And I'm cool with it. I just prefer to not, I don't know. There's a couple of other games that did that. There was one called Archon. It was a worker placement game where but it's more of like if I remember correctly, it's been many years since I played it, but you go and fight the guys that come out or whatever. And it's just kind of like you get more points if you did the most damage rather than this actually, being devastatingly penalty or a devastating penalty, because most of the time the monsters will destroy a die if they attack you, and you only have 6 dice usually. I think 6 is your max or something. So, I mean, that's a heavy penalty to suffer. And so even going over there and doing 1 point of damage to it is great. Plus, the other thing is once you go and fight it, normally when you fight challenge cards, your dice get exhausted and you have to do things to refresh them. Or at the end of the round, you refresh so many based on your focus or whatever. But the monsters, when you bring any dice into that combat, those are lost at the end of the fight. So you're going to actually put those back in the discard piles, like off your board. You have to do stuff to earn them back. So it gets really hard because you've collected all these dice and you roll them once and all those dice go away against this. So the obvious thing is to go over and just roll one die. It's just, I don't know. That's the only part I don't like, is the fact that you have to discard a lot of dice, and it takes you away from all the fun of what you're doing elsewhere. Maybe it's a valid strategy because you do get points at the end of the game for the points that you do to the monsters. So I do think it's designed well. I just don't prefer it in games. So it is what it is. I don't know what else to say other than the artwork is beautiful. The game is phenomenal looking. I don't necessarily like the boards being, here's the thing. They're all cut out different shapes and they fit together well when you put them out based on the way it recommends. That's cool and all. However, it just would have been better as just one board with art, like art depicting the islands. There's pros and cons to that even, because the board would be big. You couldn't move it around if you have a weird shaped table. So this way you can at least move things around and everything. But all these weird shaped boards, if you don't put them in the normal order, it kind of just looks clustered. It's just like, why is this shaped like this or whatever? I do like games with misshapen boards. Like Court of Miracles has a really cool cutout board, but it's one board. So it's not is the same aesthetic that I see with this game. Otherwise, though, the art is perfect. I love this artwork. It reminds me of Final Fantasy X, like Waka and the Tidus with his blade and stuff. It's just really cool Final Fantasy to me. I don't know if that was intentional. Probably, but the art style is awesome. I love all the water and everything. It's a really cool, it really just reminds me of Final Fantasy X, and that's a great game. So really cool artwork. It's vibrant. It's colorful. The characters look cool. And, I really like this. We will be playing it more and add the expansion. So I'm sure we'll be talking about it again in a future episode coming up. Once we actually get the expansion to the table. So I'll let you know how I like the expansion and even more players, because the expansion supports up to 5. So that would be cool. Hopefully it doesn't bog the game down or anything, but expansion aside, the base game is fun enough for me to say you should try it out. If you like dice in your games, definitely try this one out. I'm not going to say this game plays anything like Champions of Midgard, but if you like Champions of Midgard because it has the dice in the worker placement, this is one you should try out. If you do not like Champions of Midgard, this game looks good, but I would probably try it if it looks interesting at all. If you're like, this game does not look like I like it and I don't like Champions of Midgard, probably one you can stay away from. Again, they don't play anything like each other. They're just worker placement games with dice rolling. But it is a lot of fun dice rolling. I actually kind of like the dice rolling in this game better than Champions. So, take that as you will, but really fun game. I'm looking forward to it. I will probably end up picking this one up at some point if it comes across my lap, basically. So really cool. Really cool. Check that out. That is Tidal Blades. All right. I said I'd keep this one a little shorter, and I did, but mostly because it's just, you don't have two people talking. So you would assume that it would be 50% shorter, but I like to talk. So I made it a little bit longer than 50%. Anyway, George will be back with us next episode. We'll be talking about some other games as always, because it's a gaming podcast, right? Anyway, if you have any games you want us to talk about, send us an email, meeplecore@gmail.com, or instant messages on one of the social media apps, Twitter, Instagram, or even on Facebook, whatever. Just let me know, because I don't know if you guys want us, if you like our opinions on games and we haven't talked about one and you're interested in what we think about something, I'm totally down for playing it. We are not the cult of the new. We play some new games, obviously, but we play a lot of old games too. We play pretty much anything that we're like, I want to play that. We don't restrict ourselves to playing only the new stuff coming out. We'll play stuff from 1970. I don't care. As long as it looks interesting, and there isn't anything else ahead of it that I want to try out first, we'll get it to the table. Even if it's virtually get it to the table, whatever, we'll play it out. So if you have any really cool games that you want to hear our opinions on, please let us know. That would be really neat. Or if you have any questions, email us. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to thank you again for tuning in to episode 130 of the MeepleCore Gaming Podcast. This episode was recorded on June 30th, 2021. Please send your questions, comments to MeepleCore@gmail.com. Follow MeepleCore on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the video versions of the show on YouTube.com/MeepleCore once I get out of pandemic mode and start hammering those back up there. And until next time, this is Tim Jennette, the Metal Meeple. Keep on rocking and rolling dice.